¿Qué onda, vatos? Thanks again for tuning in to yet another video. We are getting ready to install the oil cooler. So we have to remove the oil filter. That's what we went ahead and did. You guys can see my little device here to capture most of the oil and it doesn't leak onto the frame. So you could get yourself a disposable plate, or you could get yourself a bottle, cut it open, stuff like that, put it in there, and then remove your oil filter. So yeah, that's pretty much oil. I'm just letting it drain out. And then we're gonna go ahead and clean it. But before we start, of course, just a few tips. Remember in the unboxing how I got a bunch of 1.25 inch. It turns out that I actually need 1 3/8 inch. So if you have a Sportster, your frame is 1 3/8 inch. So that's what we have up here. Unfortunately, the manufacturer only sent me one. So what we have down here, you can see I modified it. We have 1.5 inch with this is double-sided tape. Now yeah, we're just gonna clean this up per instructions. You're not supposed to add any oil or anything like that on the offset, on the oil filter offset device. So this is supposed to fit flush right in there, of course. So we got to take this off. And then we also have to install the anti-rotation bracket, which is this. So like I mentioned, this fits on twin cams and on Sportster. So this same adapter will fit on your Dyna, and it'll fit on your Softail, and I believe it'll fit on your touring model. But you would have to, of course, use this little device right here, this little adapter. So this goes in there, and then you could use this offset if you plan on upgrading your oil cooler on your touring model. So let's go ahead, grab a rag, clean up this mess, and then I'll probably put on the chest bracket so you guys can follow along and see what I'm doing. So yeah, because doing this with one hand is quite difficult. So we're gonna just let that, put that in there, grab our little rag and clean up. So clean that up as much as you can. We're gonna set the camera down, gonna clean this up, and then we'll go on to the next step, which is basically measuring this on in there and seeing where the anti-rotation bracket fits. That's the next step. So we have to remove the front piece of this assembly. So, and that's what we're going to do next. All right, so we went ahead, deassembled the offset assembly. Of course, it's going to go in there like so, and then we're just going to keep an eye on like I said, the offset, the anti-rotation bracket. So this is just so you guys know, Harleys do shake. There's a lot of vibration in these Evos, a ton of vibration in the Evos. So this is just to kind of prevent the oil filter or the assembly coming off. So I tried cleaning up as much as I can. We're gonna just give it another wipe. Like I said, you got to make sure the surface is completely clean, free of debris, and I believe they want it free of oil too as well. No oil, no anything, just complete clean install. So this gasket, I know normally you put oil on the gasket, but yeah, don't do it on this one. So we're just gonna go ahead and slide that in there. I don't know if the camera's in the proper angle. You guys can see how this assembly is just going everywhere. So that's gonna go like so. Just so you can still move it and see how this thing's gonna fit. There we go. Now, depending on a Softail, depending on the twin cam, the Dyna, I believe on the Sportster, I'll have to look at the instructions again. I believe the Sportster, it goes like so. So we'll have to tilt this a little bit more to get it to fit. I believe this is how it goes. I'll have to look at the instructions. But you know what? Let's just install the piece. We have to remove two of these. We don't need you know, we don't need both of these. We'll take these off, and then we'll install the other two, or the other ones, just so we can get an idea of how this goes. Try not to drop any bolts. So we're just gonna thread these, just so we get an idea of where it's supposed to go per instructions. Like I mentioned, I believe this bracket needs to go like this. You guys see? So let me look at the instructions real quick. I don't remember. I believe that's the way it is. I believe this way is for the twin cam. I believe this is the way it's supposed to sit on the Sportster. So you could move it like so, give yourself a better angle. I believe that's it right there. I think it's fine just like that. It's touching, you know, it's touching the primary. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. I mean, you could even tilt a little bit more, but I think that's good enough. So let's go ahead and uninstall this piece again, and then tighten that base plate. Try to hold that, and then of course, you know, tighten that at the same time. So let's go grab the proper socket. All right, so we don't really have the socket size. I have it, but of course, like always, it's somewhere hidden in all the mess that I have. So, you know, 19 isn't big enough. You might need like a 20, a 21, or a 22 for this. I'm using these grips as much as I can, but I'll probably locate my socket and then, you know, tying it proper. I don't know where it is. So anyways, we already, you know, try to hold this at the same time while you're tying in this this offset, this base plate, because it does move a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna put in my finger right here, and then I'm tying it as much as I can with the other hand. So that way it kind of still holds the location where it was when you, of course, you know, measured it for that bracket. And going back on, of course, with the Evo, yeah, it does go like this. So this is gonna go like this, and then we're pretty much done. The next part is measuring the hose, the hose for the oil cooler. So make sure the gasket on this is installed properly. So in case you're wondering, you know, the blank side goes this way, and the other side with all the little impacts and all the little stuff goes on the outer one. So this is how it goes: the black facing the offset base, and then we install this on top. So let's go ahead and put this on there. We're evenly installing these, setting these, just sitting them. We're not tying in one side. We're just doing, you know, one by one, making sure that this is well seated evenly, and it's not you know, one side tighter the other on the other, because then it's not gonna seal properly. So you guys can see how it's still kind of moving. That's because it's not seated properly. If you were to tie in one side and then you were to go and tie in the other side, then that's where you start seeing some problems, and you could potentially break one of these bolts. So this is why we always, you know, do the star pattern, go back and forth, and then you see how it's not torqued down. It's just, you know, it's just seated properly, and that's what we want. We just take our time with it. Don't break anything. Don't you know, torque anything down on one side and just making it uneven. So we're gonna take these two provided bolts from Jagg and install the anti-rotation bracket. Remember, on the Evo it goes like this, just like that. All right, so let's go ahead and thread these in there. Same thing. All right, so that's seated there properly. Now we grab our radiator or cooler and then install that like so. Let's go grab the two bolts provided by Jagg and install this. So let's go grab that. All right, so you guys notice something's changed. I moved the radiator or the cooler up. I moved it up. It used to be down here, and now it's up here. So we moved it up just so I could have a free-flowing hose. You're not supposed to have a 90-degree bend on this. You're not supposed to have any kinks or anything like that, so that way it doesn't bind up and prevent the oil from filtering to your cooler and then causing some issues. So we got to have a free-flowing hose. So what I'm trying to do is measure this out, measure twice, cut once, and then we're gonna fit this, and then we're gonna move on to the second one, fit that. So that's what we're trying to do. So keep in mind, try to keep your cuts nice and flat. That way the hose sits properly in these fittings. So you got to have a nice flat cut, so it doesn't that way when you're installing it, and if you have a 90-degree cut, then it's not going to sit flush in one side, and then it's going to potentially leak. So that's why we got to have a nice straight cut on these hoses. So let's go ahead and cut this up. Alright, so as you guys can see, we had to move the cooler up even higher because of this bend. Was just, I didn't like the bend. It was still at like a 90-degree angle. So now that I've just slid it a little bit higher, you guys can see where that bend used to be. Now, it's a little bit better. There's no longer a 90-degree bend. So we moved it up even higher on the frame. We went ahead and tightened up all the bolts again. So now we have to measure the second hose. So we're going to measure that up, install that, tighten everything up, and then just tighten up all these bolts down here too as well. We haven't tightened anything up yet, so a lot of this stuff is still loose. So we're going to move this. I like the way it sits. This one should be a lot easier because the hose is longer, so we don't have to worry about these bends. Let's get to work. Alright, so that looks really good. We're gonna go ahead and grab our clamps. If I can find them. Alright, here we go. So we're gonna go ahead and grab our clamps, put them on the hose, and then set everything up. Alright, we're pretty much finished. Go ahead and tuck in all your cables again. So I have my wires and my clutch cable. Put it back in where it's supposed to go. That way you don't have anything on the outside of the hose. And then we're going to go ahead and install our hoses. So the short one goes in first, just easier. Go ahead and slide that in there. Make sure it's fully seated, like so. Nice and clean. And then of course we're going to tighten up these connections. So it's just trying to make sure you're not the clamp's not hitting the filter, so try to keep it out of its way. So just keep in mind, keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and grab our other hose, go ahead and install that. And yeah, just keep in mind where it goes. And let's go ahead and slide that sucker in there. And that's pretty much it. So now we're gonna finish this off, tighten up these clamps, and then we're all set. That's pretty much the install of the oil cooler. And then we're gonna reinstall my old filter. I have a new filter coming in tomorrow, but yeah, I want to get this done today. So we'll turn it back on. So let's go ahead and finish this. Alright, so we went ahead and moved the clamps. I think I believe they should be providing butterfly clamps just to kind of make it easier on this side, and that way we have enough clearance. So that's what I had to do. I flipped this upward so I could screw it from the top, and then this one I ended up screwing it from the front of the frame. So you guys can see that I had to remove this for a little bit. I'm gonna put this back on there, just 2 bolts, not a big deal. We're gonna put that back on there, and then we're pretty much set. Now we just gotta install the filter. Of course, remember to put oil on the filter. You always put oil on the filter, so we'll put the old filter. It's got plenty of oil on the gasket, but just be sure to put that on there. Like I said, I went ahead and I put all my wires back in there. My clutch cable, everything on the inside. So if you ever have to service or anything like that, you can still move this. Not too bad. If you have to adjust your clutch, it's not too bad. All right, so this should cool down the bike by a few degrees once it gets up to temp. Of course, there's a little metal spring on the inside. I should have showed you guys that. There's a little metal spring on the inside, and then that activates. So when you turn on the bike, it's not going to take forever for it to, get up to temp, because all of the oil circulates within the filter and this offset. Once it gets up to temperature, that's when you start redirecting the oil to the radiator, and then the radiator sends it back, of course, to the engine, and it should cool it down by a couple of degrees. So let's go ahead and grab the filter, and let's take it out for a spin. Yeah, so tune in for the second video in case I do first impressions. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the support. You guys stay out there, stay safe. Hit a like on the video, and life's a risk. Get out there and ride. Later.